Hello everyone. In today's video, I want to talk about how you can guide students to self-assess and correct with Pear Deck takeaways combined with reflect and review mode to give students feedback. I'm going to talk about a couple of stages here. The first step is going to be to actually make an answer key in Pear Deck, because that's what students are going to use to self-assess. After you've made the answer key, you'll assign students the Pear Deck, they'll complete it, and then the next step will be for them to revise with the answer key that you've provided them. And then that final step will be for you to use reflect and review mode in Pear Deck to give students feedback, and that would be kind of the grading step here. So the first step, after of course you've made your Pear Deck, is to launch your Pear Deck just like you would for a class. Now in this case, this is going to be a Pear Deck just for me. I'm going to be making an answer key with this session. I'm going to close this session when only I have done the Pear Deck all by myself. So what I mean here is if I have my Pear Deck, say, let's go ahead and start this lesson, and I'm going to start actually a student-paced activity. Again, this one is just for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do, instead of copying the link to give to students, I'm going to copy the link and I'm going to open another tab and I'm going to paste in that link. And now here I am a teacher, and then in this tab here, I am a student. I'm going to go through and fill out this Pear Deck. So I would go solving all the problems. I've done one. That's going to be enough for my demonstration. After I finish going through all of the slides myself, I will go back to the tab that had my teacher dashboard opened. Again, you can see that only I was in this session, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the session. Yes, I'm sure. Name this session with something like answer key so that you remember which one it is, and then save and end the session. At this point, I'm going to generate the takeaways, publish takeaways for the session. It will just take a moment, and then it will generate the takeaway, and you'll see that I have the one that has my name on it because I filled it out. So let me go ahead and open that. I could clean this up a bit since this is my answer key. I don't need students summarizing it, so I can kind of delete certain slides, clean it up a little bit. Maybe the reflection questions that were for students, I could delete those and just get into the calculus specific slides. So now you'll see that we have the two answers that I gave on this one. So this is going to be my answer key. When I'm ready, I will share this link and give this link to my class, and that's going to be the answer key. But before students get the answer key, they need to try this on their own. How are they going to do that? I'm going to launch another session. The reason it's so important to launch another session is because I've published the takeaways for myself once. Once you publish the takeaways once, you can't publish them all again. So it's important to launch another session so that I can have my work and the student work separate. So at this point, this is a student-paced activity again. So I'm going to launch another one that is student-paced. And now this is the link that I'll actually give my students, and they'll actually do this one. You can name the session so that things don't get confused. So click on the three dots down here and you can name the session. Just like that, save the session name. The reason I like to name them all well is to stay organized. If I go back actually to peardeck.com and I click on my sessions tab, then that's where I'll see the two sessions. I had my sample one that I was showing you, and now I have the A block answers there. So again, just easy to keep things organized, see which ones are closed and opened if I have multiple blocks running. Students will go ahead and they'll get in this one and they will complete this. Now, let's say that 5 of my students have now completed this activity here. What I can do is I can end the session. Yes, I'm sure. And at this point, I can open reflect and review. This could be a way for me to go through my students, student by student, just to make sure that they had completed it. So I can just go through, see quickly, has a student completed this or not? I can move between students easily here. At this point, if any student didn't complete it, I could leave them feedback quickly. Just leave them some feedback right here. In this case, I'm not ready to leave feedback yet because students are going to self-correct before I leave any feedback. I'm just showing you that I'm pulling up Reflect and Review to get a quick assessment of if students finished this Pear Deck or not. Again, the reason I want to go into Reflect and Review is that I can go by student to get a quick sense of who completed it and who did not. When I do that quick little pass through, I can go either back to sessions or just back to the dashboard. And what you need to do is you need to reopen the session, because when you go into Reflect and Review mode, it closes it for students. So students aren't going to be able to do the next step, the correction step, unless I reopen it. So that's very important. I need to reopen the session. So you can do that either down here, or if you had chosen to go back to sessions, then you can simply find the session, that's this one, and press reopen session right here. Okay, so now when I reopen the session, make sure that student pace mode is again toggled on. So now students can get back in here. And at this point, I'm going to share the answer key with them because I want them to self-assess and self-correct using the answer key that I gave them. So because I reopened the Pear Deck, they're going to be able to go right back in to their Pear Deck that they had completed, and they're going to be able to make any corrections that they need to right on the Pear Deck directly. At the end of the day, in this type of assignment, will I be able to see their first pass, compare it to their corrections? No, I won't, unless I graded it before I gave them the answer key. But my goal in this type of assignment is really to get at that piece where students can take control of this and really take ownership over it. So it's really on them to learn from the corrections, to self-assess, to self-reflect. Of course, that's going to be something that we work towards and we work up to. Am I going to do this on day one? No. But it's a great way to really cut down on the amount of time you're spending giving feedback. Because honestly, we cannot grade every little piece of everything. So here's a great way to turn it back over to the students. And then after they go back and they make any corrections, at this point, then I usually do the grading because they've had 2 passes at this, so they should be in pretty good shape by now. And so at this point, I would end the session again. Yes, I'm sure. And then I usually like to generate student takeaways at this point, so students have a copy of their revised work. So that's the only version they're going to get, is a copy of their revised work. And then I would open Reflect and Review again. And here is where I would actually get to giving feedback. So I would go back in, and at this point, I would leave them any feedback, send the feedback to the student. And then you do need to make sure that students go back into the Pear Deck to receive their feedback, because they're not going to get an email notification or anything like that. What will happen is, let me copy the student link and show you what they're going to see. So they can see now that they can review their work, and they can see, okay, you have new feedback. If they click on it, they can see I had some feedback on this slide too. At this point, because it's in Reflect and Review mode, students cannot make changes anymore. So that's very important. When it's in Reflect and Review mode, they can't make changes anymore, but you can always reopen the session if you need to, again, by clicking on either the dashboard or going back to the Sessions tab. And you can just click on the 3 dots and reopen any session that you had closed. I know this seemed like a lot of steps, but it really is a simple workflow that puts ownership back on students and gives them the opportunity to revise their work before getting a final grade, for them to really reflect on their own using the answer key that you give them, for them to be able to make corrections as best they can, and then of course ask you questions when they get stuck. All right, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you found some helpful tips, and that's all for now. Bye.